Mr. Greg Burrow, my partner in crime fighting, and my lovely assistant, Miss Anastasia Anderson. She's very, very talented and smart. We are live at Dragon's Lair Comics and Fantasy, and make sure you check them out on Anderson Lane and come in and get some amazing comic books and merchandise, superhero merchandise. Today, we are following up with last week's just deconstruction episode. Last week we talked about the dark ages of comic books and the deconstruction, how it started, how it became a main part of comic books, and how it's in so many other comic book and superhero related products today. This week we're going to do the antithesis. We're going to go on the light side of it, and we're going to be talking about the funny side of deconstruction. We're going to do parody and satire. Now, we did a lot of research. This is what we do for you. We go dig deep and we find all the cool information and the drama, but we found, as usual, way too much. So we had to narrow stuff down. And when we were narrowing it down is we wanted to really examine what is a satire. And there's a big difference between a satire and a spoof. Spoofs are a form of parody as well, but they're lighthearted. It's a satire it's still an homage, poking fun at the genre's expense and acknowledging the tropes, but it's done with less affection than other forms of parody are. It's more to ridicule and raise issues of a mature nature. So it's more of a critical examination, which is what we do here on the Red Web anyway. Mm-hmm. It's not just for laughs. It's basically criticizing aimed at the genre and not humor portrayed through the genre. Now, there are a couple of main elements that we're going to really examine. One of them is the hyperbolic caricatures. The characters are over the top. They're highlighting the absurdity of the genre, and they're taking to an extreme with a big dash of cynicism. Basically, they're embracing the dumb on a level that's completely different than other forms of humor. Puns really don't necessarily equate to satire. Now, a lot of it does attack what we call the romanticism of the past. Basically, things that we remember as other things from the comic books, and in our brains have developed over time to think of them a little bit more lovingly. And it's not until they're shined into this particular light that we're going, wow, that really was dumb, or that really was messed up. So we're gonna go over a couple of those things, and basically the difference is like this. And I was telling them earlier. Think of political comics, whereas political comics have a what's the word I'm looking for? Agenda?
Yeah, they have a commentary they have to make.
Yeah.
You can have a character that's supposed to be like a spin on something without it necessarily saying anything about it.
Right. So a lot of allegory.
Yeah.
Versus the Sunday morning comic strips, which are funny and humorous in a way that's more lighthearted and family friendly. So we are going to go over real quick. I know there's a lot of things out there that you fans are probably thinking, oh, this should count and this should count. We're not counting things like anthropomorphic characters. So even though Spider-Man is a kind of parody, it's not the satirical kind that we're looking for today. There's a lot of animal characters that are basically lovingly lighthearted versions of things. But there are some characters in the comic books that definitely are self-aware and attack this. Deadpool, not so much. We know Deadpool is kind of parody and it's very fourth wall breaking. If you really want to know how we feel about Deadpool and those kinds of characters, go back, check our metafictional episode. Our metafiction episode. It was amazing.
We touch on him a bunch. We've got plenty of stuff to talk
check
about.
those out. But I am going to start off with a couple of really big names in the comic books themselves. DC Comics has a character, Ambush Bug. Now, for those of you who don't know, going back to Deadpool is actually more of a ripoff of characters when he was initially created. I know back at home how I feel about Liefeld. Initially, Liefeld just basically ripped off characters to make this character. I don't really consider him as creating Deadpool so much as other artists eventually came along and developed him into a real character who's much cooler, much more beloved, even though Liefeld gets the credit for it.
Yes.
Very similar to Spider-Woman, how we all know that it was actually Mark Wolfman that created Spider-Woman, although Stan Lee's name is on it. That kind of thing.
Mm.
But the real main one that I want to talk about to get the ball started is Lobo. I know a lot of Lobo fans out there are probably going to give us some backlash about this, but Lobo's important to us because he actually bridges the gap between last episode, which is the dark comic book character of Deconstruction,
Right.
and this episode, which is the satirical play on Deconstruction. For those of you who don't know, he was originally created in the Teen Titan comic books, and the writers, this is irony for you, the writers deliberately made him as a commentary to denounce, to talk down about the hyper violent characters of the time.
Superheroes.
The dark edgy superheroes. It was actually a commentary on how stupid Punisher and Wolverine and all of these things were. And so they wanted to make him so deliberately over the top. He was a caricature of the dark hero. He was even more violent, even more vulgar, even more dark.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of backfired on them.
Yeah.
Because then everybody goes, oh my God, this is even cooler.
And we're just like, oh, dang it.
Okay. Exactly. And so eventually, comic books companies are in it for the money. They're like, okay, this will sell, so they get other creators roll with it.
Right.
So, if you ever watch Lobo or read Lobo stuff, that's his whole point. Like, the only time, I agree with Greg, the only time I really liked Lobo as a character was on the animated series, right? Tell us.
Superman animated series.
And Justice League. He came back in the Justice League series.
Yeah.
He was voiced by Brad Garrett, which was like the perfect voice for him.
Yeah.
And yes, they kept
But he
him.
was toned down.
Yes.
He was way toned down.
He was way toned down. They still kept the like, the edgy kind of like, brutalness, but it was fun, and it was like it was really meant to be. It definitely was making fun of
Right.
those characters. So.
His popularity comes in waves. Like, I remember reading that stuff when I was a kid, and then it fading out, and then when Deadpool got popular again, suddenly he started getting popular again.
Well, yeah, and he's coming back. Greg, what were you telling me earlier about him coming back in a new comic?
Yeah, he's coming back in a comic with his daughter Crush,
Yeah.
which makes no sense to me because in the new Teen Titans comic, even like I want to say 2 years ago, a year ago, he was trying to kill her.
Well, that was one of his running things, is that he killed his entire planet, his whole civilization, and then at another point in time, he went around hunting down all of his offspring and killing them.
Oh, he was Highlandering?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was reading.
The thing is that he sleeps with just about any woman he can come across.
But he kills their kids.
And then so when they get pregnant and then they give birth, he goes around killing all of his kids.
Yeah, during the
And so it makes no sense to me that they're like teaming up and working together on anything.
I'm sure they'll find a way to yada yada.
Yeah, he's definitely a villain, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah, but
During the World War III storyline crossover they had DC several years back, they cloned him to help fight this war, and he came and killed all his clones in much the same way.
that is
So,
wild.
Yeah.
He's the main man.
Yeah, just there can only be one Lobo. Just,
There can only be one Lobo, so.
wow.
I find that interesting. And another one you guys might be surprised about, and I really had to simmer on this to make sure it fit with our theme. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, I'm not talking about the cartoons, and I'm not talking about them following movies and everything.
We had a weird amount of lengthy discussions
We
over
did.
this
We
one.
did. If you ever get to a con where, is it Richard Eastman? Kevin Eastman and Laird. Peter Laird. Kevin Eastman. Kevin Eastman actually does panels at Comic Con sometimes. I've caught his thing a couple times. He really did not like the animated series. Like, he did not like the cartoon because they changed it so much. The original comic book was intended to be, like, as Anastasia pointed out, a parody satire on
Or superhero origins, I thought you
you
said.
called it Asian Fascination.
Yeah. Asian fascination phase, yeah.
Asian Fascination phase. Yeah, this was the early 80s, so we're still coming off of the end of the 70s with all of the Kung Fu and
Yeah, from like the
Bruce Lee.
70s through the 80s.
Yeah.
We just,
Tokusugi movies.
it's a on is you had to have your staffs to.
Yeah, and the weapons, and the throwing stars,
Right.
and shuriken, and all that kind of stuff.
And even without input from other Asians, just everything was Asian themed all of a sudden.
If you ever read the original comic books, they're very stylistic. They're very dark. They're very brutal. And yeah, they definitely toned down for the cartoon. A lot of people are unaware that Eastman and Laird had sold the rights for everything except for the publication rights. So they kind of didn't have control over it. In fact, he's saying the first time he ever actually enjoyed one of the things made off of his stuff was the live action movie. It was the first time he saw the puppets.
Wait, which live action movie?
The first one.
Oh, okay.
The first one.
I was like,
no, not the
what?
CGI one. The actual one with the
puppets.
the puppets and
Jim Henson
the
Company.
yes.
Jim
Jim Henson, yeah. The
Yeah.
Jim Henson Company. And so he really liked the puppets, and he thought, that was kind of cool. And he saw some of that stuff. But here's some interesting fun facts that it's really kind of amusing to me. I even surprised Anna with it.
Yeah,
That
I
a lot of
wasn't
people
planning on it.
didn't see. So if you don't know this already, the Ninja Turtles, the radioactive ooze that gave them their powers, is the same radioactive ooze that gave Daredevil his powers. Like secretly, there's a Daredevil connection. So the barrel of stuff that fell off the truck splashed in Daredevil's eyes and blinded him and gave him his powers, then poured down the drain. Obviously, they can't directly reference him because, it's a Marvel thing, but they continue to play on that trope with the Asian weapons and stuff. And some of my favorites are that people sometimes figure out, and if you don't, when you hear it, it's like so obvious, is Splinter. Daredevil's mentor was Stick. So a rat is a splinter of Stick.
My God.
And the biggest one is the reason that the bad guys are called the Foot Clan is if you've seen the Daredevil Netflix show, from the comic books, he fights the Hand. So you're literally mimicking Daredevil through that. There's a lot of other connections to it, but that's the main one that really amuses me the most. So
I mean, it's up there with which if you ever read the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book. It is a lot.
it is a lot.
But it's stuff that that has become such a part of childhood for so long that I don't think about it until you said it, and then I was like, oh my God.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's still got so much going on. I mean, right now, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series that's coming out right now is The Last Ronin.
Wait.
The last Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
It's like the last time I checked, it's like there was the CGI version.
I like
No,
this.
I'm
there
talking
were
about
two
the
different.
I'm talking about
Oh, in the comics.
comics, okay.
Yeah, I was like, I can barely keep
The new
up.
series of comics is called The Last Ronin. And all the Teenage Mutant Turtles have died except for one.
Yeah, the IDW ones actually kind of follows the original format.
And before that, there was actually one called Jenica, which is the female Ninja Turtle.
Well, if you want
wow.
to see something in another media that actually kind of touches on the darkness of the original Ninja Turtles, Nickelodeon, a few years back, and this was way before Spider-Verse, Nickelodeon did an animated movie on their current Ninja Turtles at the time called Turtles Forever. And it's where their modern, slightly edgier Ninja Turtles met the original Ninja Turtles from the 80s cartoon.
Yep.
And to them, the original Ninja Turtles from the 80s cartoon were so silly and light and weak, and they're like, oh my God, these guys aren't serious at all. Well, basically, it ends up they have to find Turtle Prime, and they actually animate a version of the original black and white comic book. So they all end up in the black and white comic book world, where those Ninja Turtles are super grim and gritty and mean like the comic books. And it's funny because they think of the current Ninja Turtles at the time as being equally dumb and weak and silly.
So.
Which is really funny because they have to self-reflecting like, wow, maybe we're not as badass as we thought we were. But yeah, so Ninja Turtles is one that really falls into this, the original comic book iteration of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't be surprised that they keep making Ninja Turtles darker. One day we'll actually, I don't know, when we're older, they'll probably make a rated R Ninja Turtle movie out of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give it time, it'll loop back
It would
around.
not surprise me. I do want to touch real quick on anthropomorphic animal character versions of them. Yes, those are silly spoofs and stuff like Spider-Ham, etc. but we don't really count those Mighty Mouse kind of things because, again, they're too light and everything. However, some stuff from the past did get a reworking later on in Adult Swim. Adult Swim 100% covers what we're talking about here. Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law,
Space Ghost,
Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
Robot Chicken definitely lampoons these guys hardcore.
Okay.
And then there's one that I never saw before. I didn't even know that.
It's really amazing. It's the Wonder Twins have their own show, and I think there's like 5 episodes of it, and it was on Adult Swim. You can find them on YouTube. The first one's called Initiation, and I highly suggest checking that out.
Yeah, he showed them to me, and each one when they get to the punchline, it's like I'm like, what the what?
Yeah.
So if you want to shock up your childhood, if you're our age anyway, and go back and check the Wonder Twins.
It's Adult Swim, even though it has some stuff that I just don't care for, you can find some gems on there. It is a joy.
Yeah.
It's like, and they're actually doing a Bird Girl cartoon that I need to.
Oh yeah, they are. They're currently doing a Bird Girl spinoff of Harvey.
Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law.
Before we get, we'll finish up with the comics. What are some other cool 80s or other cool satire comics?
Well, I
What
talked
you
about
really
Martial
liked.
Law.
Yes.
And this was from Epic Comics in the started in the 80s.
It actually hopped around to a whole bunch of different publishers.
I'm not surprised.
So there was like the first 6 episodes, I want to say, the first 6 issues was on Epic Comics, and then it went somewhere else, and it was like, I want to say it like hopped around to a whole bunch of different places.
Creator owned titles do that sometimes.
Yeah, but the one that I read was, I want to say, the 2nd series, where they were spoofing on Batman, and they were spoofing on like the entire Marvel universe.
What you showed me was really dark.
It was interesting.
Pretty messed up.
It was fascinating.
But it was dark in the making fun of, and if you got that kind of dark.
Let's just put it this way, in one scene, in order for the Batman character to get to the Batcave, he has to drive over his parents' graves.
Which is
They're
very
perfectly.
lightweight compared to some of the other stuff.
And so he drives over their graves in order to open up the entrance to the Batcave to get into the Batcave.
One of them, I forget off the top of my head who the writer was, but I do know is my first introduction to Mike Allred's art. He's one of my favorite comic book artists. He has this very surreal style, and he always does these amazing kind of things. And he did a comic back in the 90s called Madman. And it really picked apart the superhero genre in a, it was funny. It wasn't as dark, but it was definitely less than flattering way. And then there was also, was it Mystery Men originally a comic book?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've seen the movie Mystery Men, you'll know with Ben Stiller, Janine Garofalo, Hank Azaria, like
Paul Rubens.
Even Paul Rubin is in it. So, God, what's his first name? H. Macy, who plays on.
Oh yeah.
William
William H. Macy?
Yeah, William H. Macy is actually really the show. He's really funny in this. He's really so it is. I find it amazing. I know a lot of people were turned off by it because of its criticizing nature of the superhero genre. I mean, my favorite guy is the Invisible Kid, who is only invisible when he's naked.
Yeah.
Oh no. He has to be naked to be invisible, but he's only invisible when nobody's looking at him.
Oh.
He's only invisible when nobody's looking at him, so nobody believes he's actually invisible.
That's a glitch in the system there.
Until at the end when he's like trying to like bypass like cameras and security, and of course the cameras are not people, so he's completely invisible to cameras and stuff. But my favorite line is when he actually does something, you know, and then Janine Garofalo's character, the bowler, she's just like, and I use this like quote all the time. It's like, perhaps you'd like to put some pants on or something if you'd like to continue saving the world. And that's the fun line I think that sometimes, oh my god, perhaps you should put some pants on today. So,
wow.
Now, another comic book classic, and the nature of these were actually meant to be satires, were some magazines like Mad Magazine,
Crazy, Cracked.
They had.
I want to say Cracked was actually done by Marvel Comics.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, you're right, because they actually had it was called Spidey's Man or something.
Oh.
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And definitely deconstruction of the superhero genre, especially stuff that was topical at the time and concurrent with the running comic books. That was one of the innovators. Everybody knows Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
For that.
They
especially
know
their
something
movie
for
parodies.
Mad.
Right.
Especially their movie parodies, like the Batman,
Batman,
1989 Batman
parodies, yeah.
Superman parody, and
definitely those are caricatures. Those are definitely, even in the art style, they're caricatures.
Yeah.
Going on to animation.
Yay.
Let's talk animation. There were a lot that really played into this. Some of them more tenderly than others. But the Tick going from a comic book, of course, already, which was definitely a satire, to animation. Spoon, you know.
Yeah.
And yes, I said earlier that puns don't count, but bad puns really count. And the Tick was notorious for the bad puns. And it's like, you would just like, I remember watching the cartoon and it's like groaner after groaner. It was like, ugh. Like one of my favorite was like when, what was the plant villain? El Cid? He was supposed to be El Cid, but he was El Cid. So there's El Cid, who brought a cornfield to life into his army, and Arthur's like had like an ear of corn or something with him. He's trying to be in disguise, and they're like, "What kind of corn are you in this army?" And he says, "A colonel." See what I mean? Batman, that's when he gets a TV show. We're talking about that one in a second.
Right,
Those are both good.
It's like, and that's still a criticism of comics. Because it's like, yeah, we're talking about how ridiculous the villains can be, especially if they're a weird character.
Yeah, I mean,
but then also that, yeah, sometimes this thing superheroes say are
it's
super
like, we accept Poison Ivy.
Right.
Now, because again, it's the romanticism of the past. We grew up and we're familiar with her from the cartoon and everything. But back when she first came out, I'm quite certain a lot of people are like, "Oh, I get it. She's Poison Ivy."
She made plant puns.
She made plant puns. You know, Mr. Freeze. Oh my God.
Oh no.
Batman and Robin with Mr. Freeze definitely falls under the bad pun deconstruction, if anything.
Right, I was about to say, could we count those movies?
Made all the better with Schwarzenegger's accent. I know.
And also that just, God bless him, for a while he's one of those actors that's paid by the word.
Yeah.
So it's like, and by the time those movies came out, he didn't speak much English. He was just one of those, he didn't speak much English. So whenever we'd have these, that was about all he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Just say a bunch of silly things on TV, and I was like, okay.
The Batman movies, Arnold Schwarzenegger was actually
pretty cool by then. Yeah.
I mean, Conan was probably the one that.
Yeah, like Conan and stuff.
Fair, yeah. It took a minute to get through those, but he's still paid by the word.
Fun factoid is Arnold Schwarzenegger was actually in the 90s the running candidate to play Dr. Octopus in the James Cameron Spider-Man movie that never got made.
I would be cool with that. I mean, yeah, fine, I'd be cool with that. It's one of those things.
All I gotta say is I'm very happy with Alfred Molina being.
Right.
He did such an amazing job.
I do want to talk about that later in another episode because I had some thoughts on that today, even though we're having a discussion. Going on with animated series. Darkwing Duck.
Yeah, Darkwing Duck.
Now, I'm not so sure about the current one as much.
I really haven't seen it. I feel bad.
It's a different premise than the original, but the original one straight up picked apart and tore down every conceivable superhero trope, from the Shadow and Batman to their superhero team with a Gizmo Duck. It was roughly your Iron Man. You know, Launchpad was your adventurer kind of character, Indiana Jones kind of thing. Like every single thing about it was deconstruction of superhero stuff. And that one is anamorphic characters. So,
Yeah.
you know, that one kind of counts. I don't know, what are my favorite things from Darkwing Duck? I can't even. The villains. The villains were all definitely making fun of villain names and stuff and villain tropes and things like that.
Oh yeah, because I mean, by the time like Darkwing Duck came around, we're getting to that phase where
Yeah.
we're just like, yeah, it's like we had fun with the dark characters, and it's still like we're still gonna criticize these characters, but you know that whole let's give them all guns thing played out.
Yeah,
Let's make them
Disney.
funny.
Yeah, that's Disney.
Let's talk about how ridiculous this is.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that came out about that time, Freakazoid, created by Steven Spielberg, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it's like we're getting into my age stuff
Amblin
now. I'm
Entertainment,
like,
right?
yay.
Amblin Entertainment. I have friends from art school that like Freakazoid their favorite. Freakazoid their absolute favorite.
It's like I was at a tender age because I think that that came out. It's like everything came out about the same time for me. So Freakazoid was really funny to
I
me
think
as a kid.
the reason I like Freakazoid, one of my favorite things about Freakazoid was that he couldn't fly, but he thought he could.
Yes.
So
Oh
he
my god.
just ran around, swoosh.
Yeah, he wouldn't even fly. He just run around.
He's like whoosh.
Doing the thing. It was so funny. It's like, but also which we can figure this out later. But I was like, I was a child. I was like 6 or 7. I didn't know any better. I did that on the street.
Right.
Who cares?
Okay. Little story about my parents. My parents actually put me in gymnastics because I kept trying to fly off of the sofa
Oh my
and
god.
stuff. I fell out of the same tree twice. Broke my arm, my left arm on one and my right arm the second time around. Like literally within weeks of getting the cast off. I'm like, I'm gonna get up to this top of the tree.
It's just like, wait. It's like, yeah, they're like, well, if you're gonna keep doing this, you might as well be trained to do it.
My parents totally blamed Spider-Man cartoons. And so they're like, okay, we can't keep him from climbing and swinging off of crap. What a padded floor underneath them. So that's
Right? Let's teach him how to land.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Oh, gosh.
that's definitely some cool tropes.
Mm.
More modern ones that I really like, and we're talking about the trope of super villains versus superheroes. Megamind.
Yeah,
Megamind.
Megamind.
I've watched it many times. It's my favorite thing with Will Ferrell in it because I'm not a huge Will Ferrell fan.
Same here.
I'm just not a huge. That
I
era.
want to say that now.
That Elf, yeah. I've never actually seen Elf all the way through. I've only seen pieces of it.
That's good.
I've only seen pieces of it.
It's still kind of an acquired taste.
Yeah, he's just not my thing.
It's like my friends in school like obsessed over that movie. So
Really?
Yes. Oh my god. It's like the 3 movies they always made me watch were Elf, Phantom of the Opera, and Rent.
Oh,
So it's like I was kind of burned out by Elf by the time I got to college and stuff, but it's one of those, yeah, fine, I guess you're gonna like it, but it's not like the best movie ever made.
No.
It is
I
like,
would not watch it. I mean, I've seen it once, and that's good enough for me.
right,
I'm not a big Will Ferrell fan,
But Megamind.
but Megamind was good.
Megamind, yeah, I'll sit and rewatch
So if you're not familiar with Megamind, I highly suggest watching it. It plays with the tropes of superheroes in that it examines the drive of a superhero, and this goes to deconstructing Superman again.
Yes.
Because basically Megamind is a villain. He's the Lex Luthor kind of character. And then the Superman character, Metro Man, played by Brad Pitt, actually it goes back to why is the Superman Superman? Is it because of a sense of duty? Is it because of an inner goodness or whatever? This character is super, and he's the protector of the city, and he's their Superman, Metro Man, literally the Metro City, named after the city, because he's obligated to. It's out of obligation.
He just has to.
He just has to be, and eventually he gets burnt out. He's like, I don't want to be Superman anymore. And so he basically, in a battle with Megamind and his super killer death machine, he faces death.
Yep.
And Megamind believes that he's won. So the story is basically what happens when the supervillain gets what he wants, when he actually wins. What do you do? And then you watch the rest of it from there, and it's really good deconstruction of a lot of superhero tropes.
Right. Well, and actually, it has me trying to think in order because we're going to talk about this one later. Did Megamind come first, or did Dr. Horrible come first?
I think they come out about the same time.
Because for people who chat about it, Megamind to me is is the criticisms, and Dr. Horrible done better.
Yes.
I liked it. It's like, because in the case of Dr. Horrible, it's like he's a superhero because he likes the attention.
Yes.
He likes the attention. He's a giant fame whore. In Megamind, it's like, yeah, it's like Metro Man does it because it's a sense of duty, and just like some of my favorite Superman deconstruction things, he's just exhausted.
He's just exhausted.
It's like he's not even necessarily a super bad dude. He's just like, yeah,
he's just
enough. Yeah.
One show that I really like that's animated. Have you had a chance to watch any of it yet?
Is it Help?
It's always been. No, we're still on this one.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen that one.
Okay. So
Sorry, I'm looking at the thing.
What you got?
It did come first. Yes, Dr. Horrible came first. No, I'm still, I will hold firm to this. I don't want any arguments about this because I know I'm right. Megamind was better. Not that Dr. Horrible wasn't good. We'll talk more about that one in a second.
Totally separate things, though.
We'll examine that here in just a second. Let's get through the animation.
It's in the same story.
It's in the same story.
Yeah.
One animated series that I recommend is on Hulu, and it's a Hulu original series, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's got a lot of the satirical elements that we're talking about. The Awesomes. The Awesomes is written by Seth Meyers, who's a writer for Saturday Night Live. We're gonna talk about Saturday Night Live again here in a second. But he does the main voice of it, and there's too much to explain it to you here on the show. Especially with this, as much as I enjoy the show. But watch it. It's fun and entertaining, and it definitely does what we're talking about here. It satirically tears down the superhero tropes and in really hardcore ways. But it's got a lot of clever twists and a lot of clever interpretations, which is what I think makes it crazy. Cool. And the last one, and it's one that's not out yet, so we can't give you a critique on it.
You scared me for a minute. I was like, it can't be out.
It's not out yet, but we're trying to, we here at the Red Web try to stay topical and, up to date.
We do this for you,
We do this for you. So if you are not aware of it, if it's not on your radar, there is an animated series coming to Hulu on MODOK. MODOK, for those of you who are not already Marvel hardcore fans, is a giant head in a what do you want to call it, rocket chair something. Basically, it was created by AIM. If you saw Iron Man 3, you saw AIM was the villain company.
Advanced Idea Mechanics.
AIM, which is about super science taking over the world, and they create this super being called MODOK, and MODOK literally stands for mechanical organism designed only for killing. Correct?
That can't be it. Oh
yes.
No.
Mechanical organism designed only for killing. I'm pretty sure
that is the silliest thing.
It is, right?
Oh my God.
It is. And this one is done in a stop motion style, very similar to the Robot Chicken. The thing that's really interesting that might get everybody on board with it is that it is written and voiced by.
Oh no, it did?
Yes.
It's like, who was it?
And it's written and voiced by Patton Oswalt. Yes.
Okay, I kept thinking it was Patton Oswalt.
It is.
Are we sure?
Patton Oswalt wrote and voices this. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's the only reason it still got made, because this was actually in a clump of animated shows that was announced a couple years back before Disney acquired Hulu. There was going to be other shows, including I forgot what the other ones were, but they actually were going to do several. Like there was like a Dazzler animated series of all things, and some other things. But this is the only one that survived the cut, and it's coming out soon on Hulu. And they've actually released a couple of really good trailers on it. Speaking of Dr. Horrible, For those of you who don't know, Nathan Fillion is like one of James Gunn's BFFs.
Yes.
And James Gunn likes to put him in everything somewhere or whatever. In fact, in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, he was meant to be Wonder Man.
Yeah.
He was meant to be Wonder Man. And there were like these little Easter eggs of him as Wonder Man that got cut. But in the MODOK show, Nathan Fillion is voicing Wonder Man, and he's very much a Captain Hammer kind of pastiche. So make sure you check that out, and that's one of the new things coming up if you want to see what's kind of cool.
It looks real fun, guys.
And one quick thing about MODOK, if you haven't read Gwenpool, MODOK plays a very big part in the original run of Gwenpool, which was really fun because Gwenpool actually starts working with MODOK for a while.
I remember there was actually a few years back a huge Captain Marvel story, Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel, where MODOK fell in love with her.
I love this.
And he pursued her, and she ultimately kind of led him on, mostly so she could utilize him to help her fight crime. She kind of would trick him into helping her with stuff.
It's like I love this kind of shift that seems to be happening lately, where they've gone from like, these are heroes, these are villains, neither the twain shall meet. And now it's just, we're all part of the same weird community.
Yes,
now.
exactly.
Like, sure, the villain's gonna help the hero, because why not?
One of the really hilarious things about Gwenpool is that she is an avid comic book reader in our universe, and she got sucked into the Marvel universe.
Oh,
so that's kind of her superpower, is that she knows everything that's been going on, everything that's going on in the comics.
Right, so she's like, sweet.
So it was really hilarious because Jane Foster Thor shows up and no one knows who she is. You know, they just call her Thor. They don't know who she is. They don't know it's Jane Foster in there.
Yeah, and she calls her by name.
And Gwenpool goes, TV! And what was that? You know, what did you say? And she was like, I can't remember what she said, but she was, something like, I'm in pain! No, I'm in so much pain!
I'm sorry that we missed Gwenpool. I want Greg to talk about her a little bit more, but I'm going to just point out the fact that even though we don't consider Deadpool part of this, Gwenpool fits in not so much that she's meant to deconstruct superheroes, but she's actually a deconstruction of superhero fans.
Yeah.
It's definitely a parody satire aimed to take down, like, especially super fans and toxic fandom and stuff like that. So, I mean, who are your other favorite Gwenpool things?
Well, I mean, it was just so funny because she was working with MODOK for a while, and then she kind of breaks away from MODOK and goes on her own and stuff because she really has no superpower.
Right.
Oh, so she just needs to utilize whoever's around her to be like, okay,
her superpower is she's a super fan, and she geeks out on when she meets them. And for a while, I think some organization was trying to assassinate her because she knew too much.
Yeah. And then also it was really hilarious because there was like a whole set, like she was seeing a whole bunch of other comics because she was like drastically, like frantically trying to get more popular because she was afraid that if she got canceled, then she would just die because
she would stop being written.
She would stop being written.
Now that she's talked about this one before, yeah.
Yeah, now that she's in a comic book universe, so that's actually kind of funny. A new point, just to wrap up the animation side of things, is eventually parody, especially the satire versions, become their own trope. They've gotten so common now, and we've seen them in so many things that it's actually, it's like I said about clowns. I always try to remind people, there was a point in history when everybody genuinely loved clowns. Everybody immediately associated clowns with happiness and fun.
Right.
But eventually, not William H. Macy.
John Wayne Gacy.
You were close. That was close.
You were close.
But not close at all.
He was a party clown.
You could see where my wires are.
It's like, and after like he became infamous, everybody was afraid of clowns because they're like, oh my god, he was a party clown. Does that mean any of these other people are murderers?
But then we have Dark Joker, we have Stephen King's It, and so everybody starts now.
Killer clowns.
We made them scary, guys.
But we made them scary, and now, especially newer generations, don't see clowns the way that people used to. They see them.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, it's such a weird thing to look at and real time, because it's like you've got the people who followed the original stuff, and then the people who were criticizing that stuff, and then it became part of the culture so much that, like, we didn't even realize that some of this stuff was meant to be parody. Like, people who like Lobo now, it's like, that's what he was originally for.
He was not that, exactly.
But because we went through this watch where he existed in his criticism.
I hate Lobo so much. I mean, and even though I personally...
And not even a good type of hate.
Even though personally I think Emma J. Scanlon is, like, super, super sexy, and sadly he did in fact make a sexy Lobo, I saw no interest in watching a Lobo series.
And now that I know he's a parody, I'm like, well, now it should be Danny Trejo.
Yes, it should.
People
Oh my God, yes.
I said that.
I would watch
But
the
now I'm
Danny
like,
Trejo parody Lobo in a heartbeat. Especially,
I would love that.
Okay, especially, and I hate to admit this, there is actually a little bit of me that, like, sadly enjoyed it. There was a fan film. You can find this on the web easily. It's oh crap, what was the name of it? Lobo's Nuclear Christmas Special.
That sounds
The Lobo Christmas Special. So there was a Lobo Christmas Special comic book that was presented where the Easter Bunny is jealous of Santa Claus's fame.
Oh, yep. This one. Paramilitary Christmas present.
Lobo's Paramilitary Christmas Special.
Wow.
Lobo's Paramilitary Christmas. So Easter Bunny is jealous of Santa Claus's fame, and so he hires Lobo, who's an intergalactic bounty hunter, to murder Santa Claus. And there was a fan film of it. It's actually really decently done, especially for something I think done in the early 2000s, maybe.
Yeah, you will find some amazing fan videos and fan movies just on YouTube.
But
I mean, just watching anything from Bat in the Sun.
This is right, but this is actually early on in Lobo's development. It's actually like the second or third story that was done with Lobo when they were, So he is still at this point in the comic books very much a satire. So if you watch the video of the Paramilitary Christmas, you actually get those hyper caricaturized satire elements. So, but anyway, back to parody becoming its own trope. It's actually gotten so common and stuff now that some younger viewers might not even realize that it's a thing.
Yes.
Some are our favorites. We're not going to talk about them in depth, but I just want to go over them. Venture Brothers, of course, is like a satirical parody of all fandom and geekdom and
and old adventure stories.
Especially Super Science.
Especially Super Science.
Like Dragon Quest.
Yeah. And they feature a really dark satirical version of Fantastic Four in Team Impossible. I'm not a big South Park fan. I know that
I'm not either.
I know that Cartman had a vigilante group called the Coon.
Yeah, the Coon and Friends. It's a video game. I've played it.
Oh, it's a video game?
It is also a video game. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
There's two of them. There was Stick of Truth, that was specifically fantasy stuff, and then there was one, I forget the other one, but it's just super good. No, I remember the title now, but I'm not saying it on it. I remember the title and I'm not saying it on it.
So there we go. That's how that one is. Dexter's Laboratory had one that was, again, this was a little lighthearted one, but it was the Justice Friends.
The Justice Friends.
And basically, it's a hard rocker, California's surfer dude Thor, who doesn't have a hammer. He has a guitar, which is his magic axe. His axe. I forget what the Captain America analogs powers were, and then there was like this purple Hulk who was like super stupid, and mostly their shtick was making fun of, okay, well, what do superheroes do when they're not being superheroes? So they were roommates that got on each other's nerves, and the whole premise of every episode was them trying to do laundry or something and basically working each other's nerves.
Right. Well, and the ploy is that they are taking the things that make their characters annoying. Basically, it's like I know I'm trying to pull the names up because I'm like, I was just watching this at like 3 a.m. How dare I forget the names? Major Glory. It's like Major Glory is very like, he's a very upstanding dude that's he's a
around and
he has all the America puns and junk, and then Valhallen's the
Valhalla, yes, because it's Van Halen, blah, okay.
yep,
okay.
and then there's the Infraggable Crook. It's like, yeah, Hulk's very single-minded. Thus, instead of him just being violent, he's dumb.
He's just stubborn, dumb. Now, one that really actually, definitely 100% in a very mature level way tackles the superhero satire is from Drawn Together, character named Captain Hero. I've seen episodes of Drawn Together. It actually put me off because I didn't like the way they portrayed the Blink character. It was basically meant to be a satire parody of the real world, but instead of like this random group of people pulled together,
it's geek culture stuff.
Yes, it's this random group of animated characters pulled together. So you have like video game character type animation.
Characters.
You got your princess character, your superhero character. You even got your analog of Betty Boop kind of thing. And
yeah, it's an animation like nerd culture critique thing, but we're in the gross phase of animation.
It's kind of gross, and I know, like I said, some of the characters I'm like, this isn't for me.
It's not the worst show, but it's gross, and it's like
don't go into it thinking it's a cartoon.
Right? Again, I can't. This is half of the stuff that I can't say on air, but it's like the least of the worries of the Superman allegory is that he's high strung.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is he's weird. It's like the other ones, I'm like, you can look it up, it's fine.
I gotta throw this one out there. Saturday Night Live, obviously.
I know, we're talking Saturday Night Live. The last cartoon one that we actually have
Ambiguously Gay Duo.
Is the Ambiguously Gay Duo.
Yeah. Well, also, even before Ambiguously Gay Duo, back in the original run with John Belushi and them, because John Belushi was the Hulk.
Oh, okay.
And they actually had like, I think Dan Aykroyd was Superman, maybe. I can't remember. But,
no, it was Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
It was Bill Murray.
Okay.
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Jane Curtin was Invisible Girl or something. It was the episode that actually Margot Kidder guest starred on.
Yes.
And they were doing this like parody of the superheroes, and they had like a mix of DC and Marvel because
they were actually at a mixer. They were at a party at
damn it, what is the
Clark Kent's apartment.
What is the actor who played Ant-Man?
Paul.
No. Sooner in the thing.
Earlier.
Oh, Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
Not Grant Morrison, but it is Morrison something. Grant Morrison's the writers.
Gary Morrison? No.
Crap.
I'm feeling really bad about
he was one of the few like really popular black comedians who's got a lot of work. And he played Ant-Man, and everybody kept making fun of his powers. It's like, so you just all you do is you get small and what? And they're really small. And the reason I want to throw this out there is because this is another fun superhero factoid. He actually has a cameo in the Ant-Man movie. If you actually watch the scene where Paul Rudd's Ant-Man first gets the suit.
Garrett Morris.
Garrett Morris.
Yeah, sorry, I was like,
close. Garrett
the
Morris.
only person it could be is Garrett
Garrett
Morris. I was like, oh,
Garrett Morris.
it is Garrett Morris.
So
he is so good.
Yeah, he's obviously.
But he was technically the first person ever to portray Ant-Man on anything. And so they had him in the movie where when Scott flies out of the window and lands on top of the car and crushes in the ceiling, the guy actually sitting in the car was like, what the was that? It's actually Garrett Morris.
Oh, that's cute.
So they actually, it's really cool Marvel stuff. So that's like another little fun Easter egg.
I love when they do stuff like
that.
The
most recent one I think I considered fitting into that was not the original Blue Falcon. The original Blue Falcon was very much meant to be a serious hero. But have you seen the new CGI animated Scoob with, who is it? Was it, oh God, who does the voice of it? I want to say it's either Matt Damon or Mark Wahlberg. Matt Damon or Mark Wahlberg.
I bet it was Mark Wahlberg.
Anyway, he's definitely a deconstructive satirical parody of not just Blue Falcon, but of superhero tropes altogether. So I think those are some really cool ones. So getting into live action, we're going to talk about a couple of things. One of them, we'd already talked about this a minute ago, but Dr. Horrible's Single Glove.
Yes.
And it's less a deconstruction of the superheroes as it is a deconstruction of the supervillains.
Yes. This was during our let's talk about the supervillains and make them more sympathetic phase.
Well, not only that, I mean, the hero,
Is
the
a
Doctor
jerk.
is a complete and total jerk and tool.
Yeah, he's a tool.
He's a
definitely
main-
tool.
Yeah, he's a thing nut.
He's
Yeah.
named after a tool.
Yeah,
Anyway,
right. Definitely Hammer was a tool. Let's just go with that one.
Yeah, Blue Falcon was Mark Wahlberg.
It was Mark Wahlberg,
Yeah.
okay.
It's like, but yeah, it's one of, we had a weird phase where suddenly we were like, oh, this is played out. Let's talk about the supervillains.
Yes, and I think one of the things that really, in my mind, sparked that debate and criticism of the supervillains was Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor on Smallville.
Yes.
Brilliantly, exactly. And when he finally started going bad, and they had done it, I remember him at an interview, maybe it was a convention or something, and he said that evil is not a switch that you turn off and on. It's a journey.
Yeah.
There's something that has to get you there. Nobody starts off going, I'm evil.
Right.
You know?
It's
And
like
most of the
everyone
time
thinks
people
they're the
don't
hero
know
of their own
the
story.
story.
People don't think of themselves as evil.
Yeah.
And so I
It's like those, and those are the good villains anyway, the ones who don't think they're the villains until
Yeah.
something
because his
goes
lives
wrong.
have been lied to,
Yeah.
not trusted, and
And he gets to the point where his literal line is, I am the villain of the story. He finally just gives in. He's like, fine. If you're gonna treat me like this and you want me to be like this, then fine. I am the villain of the story. So Dr. Horrible is kind of like that, and he's kind of the reverse though. He actually starts off wanting to be evil. He wants to be the bad guy,
It's like he goes in a circle.
and he finds out he can't. He finds out that's not him. That he's really, But then of course,
Then we look back
The-
around.
the joke for one bad day.
yes,
Surprise!
the hero screws him, and so then boom, bad guy.
Yeah, they decide to fight, and they get so focused on it, it accidentally kills the girlfriend, and
Yeah.
they're like, surprise, he's evil now.
We already talked about Mystery Men, the movie based on the comic book, but I said we come back to the Tick only because both live action versions were so good at doing this. I love the Barry Sonnenfeld. In fact, interviews with him will say, even though he's done the Men in Black and tons of things, he has been quoted multiple times saying his favorite project that he ever did, the work that he's most proud of, was the '90s Tick.
Yeah,
And I love Paul Warburton. The actors were
Patrick
great.
Warburton is,
Or Patrick Warburton, excuse me.
Yeah.
I said Patrick Warburton.
that's all right.
I actually went to school with a guy named Paul Warburton.
That's probably
that's
why
probably
you were
where it's
like,
at.
yes, that's correct.
But also Nestor Carmella is a phenomenal actor on all award, but especially when he's doing comedy, especially when it's dry humor. They retooled the character, the Batman analog from the cartoon, originally called Deflator Mouse, which is German for the bat, and turned him into this Latino character, Batmanuel. And
Yeah.
he stole every scene in that show so thoroughly. I mean, it was like it should have been the Batmanuel show. I love his portrayal of that character. But then later on, recently, within the past couple of years, and I can see the actor's face in my head. His name isn't there, but he plays the new Tick that Amazon Prime did. I'm really thoroughly disappointed they didn't continue it.
Yeah.
Because they did an amazing job. Amazing job. They did so many fun analogs that were definitely
I heard so many good things. about that one.
satirical, deconstructive, targeted tropes. Like they're Bucky. They have a Bucky character.
Oh no, you're gonna have to say that name. Peter something.
Strafkowitz.
Oh,
He's been in several things. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. He was actually the leader of the Nova Corps.
oh, okay.
He's had other things. He's actually really funny in this. Actually, I was less impressed with the Arthur in this one particularly, but their Bucky character is one of my favorites, and I'm having a very hard wash from Firefly, the actor.
Oh, now you put me on the spot.
Yeah, see?
Damn it,
That's why I'm here with the phone, because we don't know sometimes.
say it. It's Alan Tudyk.
Oh, okay, I was like, wait a minute.
We're getting our wires fried to the end of this saga. Alan Tudyk plays the boat, the danger boat.
The danger.
The danger boat.
Powerless.
That's
Yes.
delightful.
Powerless. Oh my god, that one definitely counts. We'll put that here in a second. Alan Tudyk plays the boat, and it's really funny because it's an AI, and he's in love with the Bucky character.
Oh my god.
And he's like, even though I'm an AI, is it weird that I self-identify as a gay man? And they're like, well, technically there's no gender in an AI, but you know,
Details.
it's really kind of cute. And then yes, Powerless.
I mean, you name Alan Tudyk, you have to talk
Yes,
about Powerless.
especially for talking satirical parodies. It only ran for one season, mostly because I don't think they tooled the lead very well. They too purposefully made the lead plain with the intention of contrasting her against this absurdity. And I don't think the lead character was as intriguing and interesting as it was. But it was really cool to see some really deep cut DC heroes portrayed in live action.
And Starro.
And Starro. It's the first actually Starro who's going to be coming up in Suicide Squad. Starro was definitely a first appearance in Parody Eyes. But basically the concept was this is Bruce Wayne's cousin has been giving this little dinky company whose purpose is to create products for the everyday citizen who lives in a world where superhero stuff happens to protect them. So like it's like, you know, rubble umbrellas and things of that nature. So and it's actually definitely it's definitely taking down the tropes and stuff. So that's another one. That's another really fun one. And I think in a way, Suicide Squad at its original inception was also meant to be a deconstruction. For those of you who aren't aware of the actual origin of Suicide Squad, it's when DC had combined. They rebooted their universe for the first time. Now it happens every week, but whatever. When they rebooted their universe for the first time, it was a big deal. And they had acquired several other publishing properties before then, and they wanted to bring these new characters in, like Captain Atom and Plastic Man and other things that were originally, and even Shazam, who were originally published by other companies that over the years DC had bought, and they wanted to put them in their main universe. Well, what they ended up having is this huge surplus of their villains. They had all of these villains from all these characters. Many of them they didn't know what to do with. So when they started, the original concept of Suicide Squad was with the intention of killing people off and making fun of the tropes of everybody, you know, comes back to life or everybody gets out of these scrapes. And they wanted to make it where it's like, you know, you would get attached to characters.
And then they just die.
Yeah, it was like
that was it.
It was the original Walking Dead. It's like, we don't know who's gonna die randomly out of nowhere, and that was the whole point of that particular one. So
even though if you keep track, we have a vague idea of who's gonna make it and who's not in the Suicide Squad movie.
Right. So
we have a pretty decent
I'm
idea.
pretty sure Harley Quinn is always going to survive.
Right. Exactly.
We've got plenty more money to get.
Right. So thank you for joining us on the Red Web. We really appreciate it. We will post up our next week's topic soon. We've got so many great things to choose from that are like that need more investigation. So actually, for the first time, I can't give you a heads up. But as always, make sure and go to our parent producers, Kaiju Labs Media on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us. And catch us next time. And also comment. Tell us how we're doing, how much you like the show, what you don't like about it. If we were wrong in any of our facts, especially, you know, so Ms. Anna's looking them up for you. Hopefully, we're not
That's what I'm here for. I'm the one with the cell phone.
Any mistakes or anything.
Yeah.
And definitely, we're always interested in what you want to see. We'd love to do. If there's something you want to know more about, tell us. We will investigate it, and we will produce a show on it, and you can learn and enjoy along with us. So.
And I want to thank our producer Gavin.
Oh, and Gavin's amazing. See you next time.